It's your boy Brando Wayne. We're here live at 98.5 FM at WHPB, and we have an amazing guest from Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Who do we have here? I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
Hi, greetings and humble salutations. It's your girl, Alea McSeal. I'm a third year broadcast journalism student at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, period. And um, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, but of course I go to school at FAMU.
Mm-hmm.
So hello, Mr. Brandon Wayne. Brando
Brando
Wayne.
Wayne.
It's
And for
me.
people who don't know me, I am Brandon Lewis. Go by Brando Wayne. I am a second year finance student at Florida State University, and I'm from Orlando, Florida. Most people should know that. But today we're talking about sexual assault, and that's a touchy subject to talk about. And oftentimes I don't feel like we talk about it a lot or enough. And with that, it's often swept under the rug, and we don't need to sweep it under the rug because I feel like there's a very big umbrella. You feel me? It's something that we need to address, and oftentimes, it's difficult to address that because it's such a touchy subject. And I just wanted to bring you in just to get a good perspective on sexual assault, especially within college students, and the coach that's going on right now. Everybody was just getting exposed. People who were victims, they were just like they was like, all right, I'm done. I think this is a great time to say, okay, these people need to be held accountable. Let's talk about it. And I feel like this is a great platform to talk about it. And I just want to bring you in to talk about it. So, what is your take on sexual assault and how do you feel about it?
Sexual assault is it's just a heinous crime against any person, woman or man. Um, it just makes someone feel comfortable. Sexuality and sex is just it should be a very intimate encounter, and I feel like with sexual assault it's just taken out of context. It hurts the person that's being affected and it hurts their families. So sexual assault is just terrible.
It is terrible. And especially I feel like, a lot of times what it was crazy is going down Twitter and it's seeing say, women say, I was 7, he was 9, or I was 7, he was 20, I was
Mhm.
7 and he was this. It's crazy seeing that. And it's like it's happening to our children. And how do we prevent that from happening, especially at a young age? And sometimes it happened, one person said I was 7, he was 9. How do we prevent that? Like, what are some solutions to that?
Well, one, I think that every sexual assault case should be taken very seriously off bat. I know there's a lot of uproar where people be like, oh, people be lying. But I think that every presentation of sexual assault should be taken serious. And it's not just in the bedroom. It could be in the work environment. It could be at a party. It could be in class. There's
Mhm.
so many places that this could happen, and it could be so minuscule. I know me personally and other people I know that it'll be little things that you don't even realize was sexual assault until you realize it.
Mhm.
um but I think like the best way to tackle this is just to be more informed. I think education is the key to everything. So people need to become informed on what is sexual assault, how it can affect another person's life and their people and their life. Um, and especially with the school environment, it's just how it affects the school, how it makes the school look. So
And I like from my perspective, I think a lot of times we need to tackle the issue by having these discussions within the home.
right.
And as parents or mothers or fathers within these households, we have to create a platform where these children feel like they can speak out against things like this, speak out against things that are taboo. Because oftentimes, children are afraid to go to their parents and say, mom, such and such has touched me in the wrong way, and I want to report it to you. And not and and that afraid, being afraid, or how do you say it, being afraid to come out to your mom and talk about certain things like that, oftentimes it gets swept under the rug. And just creating that safe platform for kids to come out and say, mom, I've been touched by such and so, or your son saying I've been touched by such and so. We need to have these discussions, and we need to allow our children to speak out against things that are not right, and not just shut them up and tell them like, you have to be quiet, you're a child. No, that's not, we don't need to do things like that no more. And especially with our young men, we have to teach them at a young age that you should not be touching your cousin, your sister, or anybody within your household in the wrong manner. And you have to understand you have to play with everybody in the right manner, and understand you have to have pure intentions. And it's very difficult telling a child that. But at the same time, we need to have these discussions with our sons so they understand how to play the right way without taking advantage of younger girls. Because oftentimes, being a young girl who's 7 or 6, you're not realizing that, oh, this person is taking advantage of me. And this often relates back to being somebody who goes off to college and being sexually assaulted and never, never dealing with that, it's hard. It's very difficult. And I'm pretty sure you have some friends who have been touched or, sexually assaulted in the past, and then now they're dealing with that issue. And
Mhm.
how have you been a helping hand, or what can you say about that situation?
The best helping hand I think for my friends and family that's gone through this is just listening. I think what a lot of people really mess up with is that they just throw all these opinions and what they should have did or how this could have been avoided, when you should just listen to the victim. Just hear them out, hear how they're feeling, hear how they want to address it, and you move forward from that. I know, like with my friends and family, I've really just been like I said, like a listening ear, just hearing how traumatic the experience was. And sometimes right there that causes relief within themselves because they had no one else to talk to at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Or or they just didn't feel comfortable with saying it, but now that they have someone that's listening to them, they're more comfortable in talking about it. So I think that's like, for me, I think that's the best way I can help someone. And then if we can move forward from there.
Right.
So
And I think what's great is that we offer resources to these people. Counseling, I feel like that's an amazing way to get over that trauma.
mhm.
And sitting down with your parents in time and just having that conversation is, just letting that go is a great way to start. And, also we have other resources such as Title IX, just reporting that case and just, holding that victim, well, not a victim, but the assaulter
Mhm.
accountable. Like oftentimes these people are not held accountable, and we need to hold them accountable. And once we hold them accountable, that gives a relief to the victim. And I feel like in situations we need to realize, like especially in college, it's a touchy subject, because college is so many other factors that play into it. It's liquor, it's weed, it's so many different things that play into it, and it's like it's tough to realize, all right, is this sexual assault? Am I what did I do wrong? And there's a big culture around that, around certain organizations, just preying on certain girls. And I'm not going to only say it's only girls who are being preyed on, but it's also men who are being sexually assaulted.
Mhm.
But we right now at the moment we're talking about women and being sexually assaulted, and we just need to hold those guys accountable. But oftentimes it's very difficult to hold them accountable
Right.
because certain organizations are protecting them, or they have such a name or prestige, influence on campus. So it's like people don't want to attack them or damage their reputation. But it's like we need to have this conversation and we need to hold these people accountable. And it starts, you feel me, as I believe it starts with children. We need to teach our children from a young age, our young men, like, be mindful of how you conduct yourself around women. Be
I think,
mindful.
not to interrupt you, but just to add on to what you're saying with talking to kids at a young
Mhm.
age, is with like we all grown up where boys, if they playing with a girl or they're being rough with a girl, it's because they like her, or
Mhm.
they
Absolutely fighting.
what I'm saying, like
Right.
they're like, oh, okay, he just has a crush on her. But no, if a guy, if a boy is playing on the playground and he's playing with the girl too rough, and you could tell that she's getting uncomfortable or that she's saying, no, I don't want, whatever, then that's when the base needs to be set, the foundation needs to be set. Like,
Mhm.
look, that obviously doesn't like that, so don't touch her. If she's not really fond of you hugging her, then don't hug her. It's
Right.
that simple. Or ask, simply just ask, can I give you a hug? It's that simple. And I think that's where the problem lies, like you said, in childhood. Boys grow up thinking like, oh, I could do this, that, and the third to a girl, whatever, with no repercussions. And that's when they grow up to be like these men that are
Mhm.
preying or sexually assaulting women.
Right.
So it does definitely need to start at the childhood, but it needs to start with that breaking down of boys will be boys. Boys are rough. He likes her because he's being rough with her. Like, no, that's no. And then it makes the girl feel, less than, because she's like, oh, I just have to deal with this.
Right, because it's traumatic things to deal with, being a young person and just being taken advantage of. Like, it's very tough. It's difficult. You see how much it affects certain people as they grow up. And I seen something on Twitter, and I just want to ask you this question: is like being sexually assaulted, it can lead to being hypersexual.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
And that's you see it sometimes because it's like, dang, somebody took advantage of me. And it's like I try to, I try to refrain from talking about this sometimes because like I don't want to say the wrong thing or come off the wrong way. But it's like, with that, how do you feel about that? Just sexual assault leading to be hypersexual.
I definitely agree that that's the case that happens to a lot of people. And I think it's not from a place where they're like, oh, okay, someone did something to me, now I want to do it to them. I don't think it's always that. I think what it is that when people are sexually assaulted at a very young age, they feel as though that's their only way to maybe get attention or to feel loved on or to feel that feeling of adequacy among that person, and that can result in someone being hypersexual because they feel like the only way I'm going to get this love or this attention is if I'm doing sexual things with this person. But it can come from a place where they want to hurt other people. And I think that happens a good amount of times too. Like people are like, well, this happened to me, so I have to inflict it on others. And it's really terrible to see that or hear people's cases, because at the same time you want to feel bad for them, but it's like you're causing pain too. So, that I'm always a big fan of therapy. So
Mm.
I think that a lot of people that are either hypersexual or, cause pain to others need to go seek help, or just talk to someone, because obviously there's an underlying issue there, with the cause of inflicting pain or, doing something that you don't necessarily want to do, but you just know it's the right thing to do.
So, with like college is a lot of kickbacks, there's a lot of parties, a lot of get-togethers or small gatherings, and oftentimes it's marijuana there, is liquor there, and being under the influence, like people say all the time, you can't really give consent, but it's tough because you got two intoxicated people, one person with intentions of I want to pursue this person. Um, how do we avoid situations like that from happening, or when people are getting sexually assaulted at these gatherings and these kickbacks and stuff like that?
um this is, I think, probably the toughest question because, as a perspective from a woman, I know that when I go to a party or a function that I'm always supposed to be on my A game, regardless of how messed up I get, or whatever, I'm always supposed to be, here. So that way I could still, make sure nothing's happening to me. I'm always watching my drinks. I don't take, drugs from anyone or whatever the case may be. So I'm always on guard. And that sucks because sometimes I just want to have fun, but I can't because of people that have ill intent with not only me but other women there.
Right.
Um, the way to tackle this is, I mean, we could always go to the consent. You have to have consent before you mess with anyone. I don't care
Mhm.
who you are, what you're doing, what the situation is. There's always needs to be consent all the time. So I think to avoid these issues is that from a male's perspective or whatever, just ask. I think that's just a simple way of solving. Just ask.
But can you make the best decision
Right.
while you're under the influence?
But see, that's the thing. So when you're under the influence, I think that those type of big decisions shouldn't even be coming across your mind. Like you should be
Mhm.
like, you know what? I'm gonna just have this fun tonight, but I'm not even gonna mess with, the young lady or whatever the case may be, just because I know I'm under the influence. I know she's under the influence. So it's no point. So it's no mishap. So it's no confusion. You know, if you still feel that way in the morning when you're sober up and she's sober, then have that conversation. But I think when alcohol or any type of drug gets involved, it should sort of be left alone. It shouldn't be acted upon.
Which is difficult, because dudes,
But
they
it's
want
very
to
difficult. Yeah.
they want to pursue things, they want to have fun, they want to experience things, they want to enjoy themselves, they want to end the night on the right way, with having sex with somebody. But
Right.
oftentimes it's difficult because like some women, they're okay, like I'm on influence, I'm feeling you, cool, we have it. Some women, no,
Hmm.
and they can't make the right decision, especially when you have somebody who's not as, used to being, under their influence. It's very difficult for them to make the best decision for themselves. But it's like we can't blame victims. We can't blame them. And you have to, and that's one thing I learned. We can easily get mad and say, you should never been in that position. But no, you cannot blame the victim. You
Right.
have to be understanding because it's like a person can easily take advantage of somebody,
Right.
especially a dude over a woman.
Hmm.
And in many cases, it's like as dudes, we have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to realize the harm that we inflict upon women. And once we understand our intentions aren't impure with women, especially during times where we're drinking liquor, we have to realize and catch ourselves like, okay, boom, I need to realize like this can potentially lead to X, Y, and Z, and
Mm-hmm.
I can get in big trouble for doing something that I will regret in the future. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like as men, we need to hold ourselves accountable, and we need to hold the men around us accountable. So we hear men are who are inflicting this pain or inflicting, this trauma upon women, we need to hold them accountable. Those guys have to be held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And before that to even happen, we have to, create a safe platform for our children to be able to express themselves when things like this occur. Because oftentimes, people are just afraid to have those conversations with their parents or with their family because they're afraid of what may happen. But oftentimes we have to realize that it's better to solve and tackle the issue and hold that person accountable, which will make you feel more relieved. And it's like get justice for the things that they have put on you because that person has violated you. And if a person violates you in any way, that person needs to be held accountable.
Definitely.
And with this being such a touchy subject, it's like we have to realize what are effective solutions to move forward. We need to find those because for one, we can't change somebody that's crazy, but we can't hold them accountable.
Right.
And the only thing we can do is prepare our children for this world they're about to enter.
Mm-hmm.
So, like Frederick Douglass says, easier to raise good boys than to repair broken men. So we have to start off with the children and understand like these children are the future, and we have to put the right tools, instill the right tools and
Practice.
methods into their head so they understand how to go out there and tackle this issue. So when they're in surroundings such as a kickback or a gathering or party, they're not trying to take advantage of women who are drunk because you see it too often. You go on to FAMU, I go to FSU. We
Mm-hmm.
see it too often.
Definitely.
But if you teach your child, at a young age, like, yo, you can't be touching women like this. Don't take advantage of women who are under the influence. If you're in a situation like this, prepare yourself to make the best decision. And once you drill that into a child's head, he learns. He understands. I can't make decisions like that. He may make a mistake once, but at the same time, he's the I believe the likelihood of it happening is going down.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just it's a lot to that situation. It's a lot to that conversation. And we could talk for days about this, but honestly, I just feel like it's a great time to talk about it because of the culture. We're going back to school.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is starting back up. School is partially open, at FAMU and FSU and
Right.
most Florida schools. And we need to have this because I feel like, a lot of times such a taboo subject, especially within the Black community, that it's not handled.
Yeah, it definitely, that made me think, how social media is, that's basically our generation.
Mhm.
So I was just wondering from your perspective, like, do you think social media has, informed or brought about awareness to you on sexual assault or not?
I would say social media it has informed me in many ways because a lot of people that you look at a lot of times you can't tell a victim sometimes, and it's
Yes.
very difficult to just look at a person like, oh, you're a victim of sexual assault. So seeing certain people who are, I looked at, I'm like, dang, this person has been sexually assaulted. It's like, wow. And seeing how common it just happened among
Mm-hmm.
so much women within our community, especially our college community of FSU and FAMU. And it's like, wow, this person was next to me all this time, and this person has been sexually assaulted. And I never knew.
Yes.
I never knew. You could say things that are traumatic that may affect that person. And I feel like, once we have these conversations of who has been sexually assaulted, we can be the best friend and best support system.
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes we joke around and say how we, someone, men, they'll say, I like to be aggressive with my lady or my shorty.
Mm-hmm.
Some women say, I like men that's aggressive. And then not knowing you have a friend who has been sexually assaulted and
Right.
taken advantage of, that may be inflicting some type of trauma upon her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's so crazy just realizing that, you feel me, social media has brought so much attention because so much dudes haven't realized that they have done something wrong.
Yeah.
Dudes are like, oh, I ain't never do anything wrong, but sexual assault is not just one definition for sexual assault.
Yes.
There's so many different definitions of sexual assault.
Oh, maybe.
So in realizing that, it's like, wow, there's so many ways to assault a woman or a man in a certain way where they feel violated.
Yeah.
And with social media, that has brought so much awareness to me, because it's like the stories that they're putting out on these different outlets. It's like I'm learning, I'm learning, I'm learning. I'm like, wow, 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 wow. And it prepares you, it teaches you, like, I can't do certain things like this, it may be acceptable. Like we oftentimes we think, it's okay to a girl walking through the club to
Right.
pull her, to tell her come here.
Yes,
That's sexual assault.
that is.
That's sexual assault. And it's, with people coming out, it's like that falls under sexual assault. And so it's like we have to teach ourselves how to approach women in certain manners, because like we can easily violate them.
Yeah.
So I would say yes, social media has brought awareness to the situation.
Yes. I think for me, social media has definitely been a tool in allowing. It's definitely given women voices. Like there, it allows them to have a voice. Because even though, you could go to the law enforcement, you could go to your friends and family, it it brings more awareness to their trauma, and it makes women not feel alone. I think that's one thing I've noticed with a lot of sexual assault victims is that they feel alone. They feel like, oh my gosh, this just happened to me. I feel terrible. Woo. But it allows them to realize, okay, it only hasn't happened to me, and it makes them. I feel like with some women, it makes them feel empowered to, make sure that this doesn't happen to any other girl.
Mm.
I think that's what the exposing on social media was really about, was just showing that, like, who the assaulter was, and for other women to be on guard or be aware that this person is someone that sexually assaults women, and that, to be careful, and that, I don't want you to be the next person or the next girl. Um, that this happens to. So I think social media has definitely, I mean, I've had awareness way before, just being a woman, with my parents always instilling in me, always being conscious of what's going on around me, watching, my surroundings, watching my belongings, all that type of stuff. But I think like nowadays, it's gotten so crazy. Like I've even seen stuff where like now they're hiding under cars to sexually assault women, and I'm just like, wow, like that's really crazy to me. But through social media, I've learned this. I would not have learned this just walking through the street. So it is definitely a great tool in helping women become more aware, and even men, like you said before, it allows men to realize what sexual assault is and what it isn't, and how they probably, and a lot of men, not even saying that they purposely sexually assaulted women, but they didn't even realize it themselves. So
Right.
I think that's a great, social media is a great tool for this.
Yep. And so what advice would you give, FAMU 24, FSU 24, just coming to college, and, just understanding the atmosphere that these colleges hold, and just being a young woman, being a young guy, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them that, well, I would instill in them that don't ever feel like you don't have a voice. You always have a voice. If you've been affected, if your best friend's been affected, if your roommate's been affected, if anyone you even just walk by on the street has been affected, use your voice. Use your voice to inform, use your voice to bring awareness, and also use your ears to listen to that, to the victim, to anyone else. And I mean, avoidance of the situation, I think we're all still learning on how to properly avoid the situation. It's sort of like clean and dry. Don't assault anyone. No one would be assaulted. But I think like the best advice I could give to them is just to always feel like they could say something, and that they shouldn't be quiet because they're scared because of the assaulter. Like you're so powerful that if you tell one person, or if you bring awareness to the situation, you'll help tens of, like thousands of other people that you didn't even realize you helped. So always feel like you have a voice.
So my final question is this: what penalty should the person get for sexually assaulting someone?
Penalty. Well, one, I think, I mean, I could really, really put out some ideas, but I think like
Yeah.
the best, I mean, not the best, but like the penalty that I think would fit the most, is just, I mean, I guess putting them behind bars.
But for how long?
See, that right there is just,
Should they get life? Should they get have what should be the penalty, and what will hold them accountable to make the best decision next time?
I think it's sort of like a DUI class. So like I think that there needs to be some revoking. So let's say it's on a college campus, you might need to be expelled for the semester. Then you need to take a course or a class on sexual assault. You know, how to not sexually assault someone or how to recognize sexual assault. Um, and then I think it just needs to be an education in summary. Like, you know, I think,
So no jail at all.
huh?
You said education, so they.
Well, I think with young college students, and I'm not saying that there's not some people that need to be behind bars, because trust me, there is. But I think that it needs to be a rehabilitation. So regardless if that's behind the bars or outside of the bars, but I think it just happens on a situation basis. So if a person sexually assaults someone, right? I definitely think it should be like some type of expulsion from the school.
Mm.
And then they need to do some type of, you know, like rehabilitation within, you know, being educated. So they need to be informed, because it doesn't matter. Let's say I put them in jail, right?
Right.
In jail, they not learning nothing. They're just like, okay, I'm in jail for 6 months. When I get out, I'm gonna go back to doing what I was doing. Like, so it needs to be some type of education, definitely within, you know, that situation. Of course, some situations are more heinous than others. Some people, they need to be locked behind bars and the key thrown.
You're right about that.
Yeah,
Especially the ones who are touching young girls above under
girl.
the age 18. Like, you shouldn't be 30 years old touching no girl that's under 18 or under 10 years old. Especially, come on now, like really, like what's going through your mind to want to touch a girl so young? And we have to be mindful. And I feel like the best thing we can do in situations like this is hold ourselves accountable, especially as men. Man, teach our children how to address these situations and how to speak out against situations like this, because we need to speak out, because we hold them in too much. And when you hold stuff in, it would hurt you. It can break you down. It can make you feel terrible. And we need to start there. And I feel like once we start there, we can ultimately move to any other solution that we have in place. So, today was a great discussion. Do you have any final remarks?
I think we pretty much touched all bases. I think that this conversation I'm glad we had this conversation. I think this conversation needs to be had between everyone in their household, in their dorm room, everywhere. This needs to be an ongoing conversation, because it's very prevalent. And as you see, or as you stated before, like you've seen so many people we are close to or that we know have been affected by sexual assault that you wouldn't even suspect. So it definitely needs to be a conversation within the household, everywhere. It just needs to be talked about. And it shouldn't be something that's taboo. It should just be a conversation that you have, you know. Right. It's right. It's just the right thing to do. You know, people just need to realize that a lot of their actions have consequences, and although it might not be immediate consequences, but it could be consequential on the person that they're affecting, and, you know, even them in their future, you know. So I think that I'm glad that me and you had this conversation, and I hope that anyone that's listening was informed or enlightened by our conversation. So yeah.
Well, that's it. It's your boy Brando Wayne, and we also have
Alea.
And we'll be back. Next up, we have a local artist, and the song is called "I Matter."